As usual, we follow global atheist news with views on the news.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carried and drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? And Tercia has been treated to a Mother's Day meal. So she's absent this week. But we have Guy, as you can see, Guy from Manchester. Welcome, Guy. Thank you for coming. We may be joined by Dread Pirate Higgs, who, as you know, is in British Columbia, probably very close to the tundra, and may not have connectivity. Let's wait and see whether he comes in late. So item number one. The Israeli Defense Forces said that 10 projectiles had been fired from an area near the Rafah crossing in southern Gaza. Hamas's armed wing claimed responsibility, and they said the target was a nearby Israeli army base. 4 Israeli soldiers were killed, and of course, subsequently, Israel has struck back. Yeah. And they killed at least 12 people. So, Guy, ongoing, what do you think?
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm afraid this is war, isn't it? Between, and this is. I mean, I suppose Hamas are trying to demonstrate that they haven't been defeated yet. That's important for them. It's also important for Netanyahu. I mean, so one of the things that seems unrealistic in this war, and it is a war, is the idea that a movement like Hamas can actually be eradicated, which I think is Netanyahu's war aim. I'm skeptical that such an idea is possible. It might be, but I can't see how it's going to happen.
No, I agree, because even if you do eradicate the current generation of Hamas, which is unlikely, as you say, all you've done is given the next generation, the sons and daughters of those dead terrorists, a grievance for which to continue the mission. It's ridiculous. But that's what they're doing. They're trying to do that. And the reason is because Netanyahu he's in a bind. He can't win either way. Because, and in fact, Hamas has cunningly played an ace here, because they after months of talking, they've agreed to a draft ceasefire deal.
Yeah.
And this is a deal different from the one that Israel agreed to at the end of April. But by agreeing to it, they've sort of, what's the expression? They've played an ace, because the Israelis were expecting them not to agree to it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's predictable that in a couple of weeks, when they've finished their Rafah assault and operation, Netanyahu will declare victory and will declare Hamas eradicated. But we'll see whether that happens.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways of looking at the Hamas agreement to the ceasefire. One is that they're wiped out effectively. They're desperate because they've been badly blooded and broken by the Israel's long offensive. But the more likely explanation is that it's an adroit political move, turning the pressure back on Mr. Netanyahu.
Well, yes, I mean it's a game of chess. All of these wars are like that, really. Nothing very unusual going on.
No,
Other
indeed.
than that, the price exacted from Palestinian people seems to be excessive. Although I did see some reports in which the Hamas figures were being questioned. I don't know what to make of them, but they think that some people have some figures have been double counted, and also they've included the casualties that happened in a hospital which was bombed by mistake by Hamas itself. So, but you could see from the scale of the devastation that there must have been numbers of casualties.
Absolutely, yeah. Yes, they've the expression "razed to the ground."
Yeah, absolutely.
Doesn't often get used, but this is appropriate use of it. Yeah, and Netanyahu's problem is pressure from two ultra-nationalist Jewish extremists, the finance minister Bezalel Smotrich and the minister for national security Itamar Ben-Gvir, because they want Israel to occupy Rafah, and they've threatened to topple the government if he doesn't make it happen. So for them, a ceasefire equals surrender.
Yeah.
He can't win.
No.
Because if he gives in to them, then he's lost. He's going to be deposed and probably imprisoned.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing that I noticed, in fact, it was in today's news, that the Israeli Defense Force have had to return into North Gaza or some other place in Gaza, where they think they've already sorted that bit and withdrawn, but they haven't. And so it's I wouldn't be at all surprised if Hamas are really all over the place still.
Yeah. They're gonna regenerate, like an amoeba. Yeah. So meanwhile, in their attempt to control the message, the government in Israel has shut down Al Jazeera television network.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think it's a bit of a testament to Israel that they haven't already done that. So it is a nominally free country, and so that's interesting that they've waited 6 months or more before doing it.
I'd like to point out it's also nominally a secular country.
Yeah, nominally, yeah. But I mean, in wartime, passions do rise, and so it's not surprising that Al Jazeera is closed, and also maybe it's part of a move to put more pressure on the Gulf states, because Al Jazeera is owned by, is it Qatar or
Qatar? Yeah.
And Qatar are one of the mediating parties, isn't it?
Yes. Along with
Egypt.
Egypt.
I'm just wondering whether there's a sub story going on there.
Yeah. Of course, Al Jazeera claim that the idea that they are a threat to Israeli security is a dangerous and ridiculous lie.
Yeah.
And they're going to pursue every legal step to counter the banning of their operation.
It's interesting that Al Jazeera obviously think that they are impartial in their news.
Yes.
But their impartiality is still too much for the Israelis to cope with, because they seem to think that their point of view is the only one.
Yeah,
as I can tell.
It's the same old story, isn't it?
Yeah.
One man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, coming to the UK, demonstrators at Cambridge and Oxford have occupied the lawns of their universities in protest against Israel's war in Gaza. What they're doing is copying the camps that were set up in America at Columbia University and others, and they're tents, and they're calling these liberated zones. And in this country, the thing is that they have set up signs on the almost hallowed walls around the university with messages such as Israel is a terrorist state, and from the river to the sea. And it's all it's polemic, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, my first thought on that is that the the lawn, the grass in the centre of my college, I went to Clare College in Cambridge, was sacrosanct.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Walk on it. You know, it had been carefully tended, mowed, and loved, and rolled for 400 plus years.
Yes. It's like the quads. You didn't go across them.
No. So, so for people to occupy it and pitch tents and God knows is the ultimate sacrosanct. But I suppose that's part of the message. That they're trying to make a very strong point, and this point is actually getting through to the government. The government are changing their tune ever so slightly, and of course you can see it in the States as well. Biden is beginning to listen. That people do feel very strongly that Israel is actually going over the top here. And you know, so I wouldn't want to condemn them. I do worry that individual Jewish students are being targeted. That's completely out of order. That's completely wrong. It's not the Jewish students who live in this country who are responsible for what Israel is doing. In fact, the very fact that Jews are not living in Israel but are here shows that those people do not necessarily support what's going on in Israel.
Absolutely,
that they do. Many of them do not.
Indeed, and one of them featured in a video that I showed in Global Atheist News last night. He was a first-year history student at Christ's College, and he came to the protest and unfurled his Israel flag, and immediately he was pushed, and my flag was grabbed, he says, and thrown to the ground, and he was then ushered away by stewards for his own safety. So you're right. There's antagonism between the groups of people who had actually nothing to do with it themselves.
Well, yes, but obviously the issue is arms sales, isn't it? And that's one issue. The other issue is that a university should be a place where people can debate and discuss.
Yes.
Non-violently, even if they're on opposite sides of essentially a war.
Yes.
But doesn't seem to be happening. And again, it's this purity culture, isn't it?
Yes.
This moral high ground that people are taking on both sides.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not helpful. I think that we need to listen and recognize that possibly the other side might have a point, and we ought to listen to it carefully.
Absolutely. Dogma is wrong. And accepting that there's an alternative is right. So we go to America, where a young, I'm not sure whether he was a pastor, but he was certainly a leader in a religious community. The what do they call themselves? The Church of Abide in the Vine Fellowship. He was 26. His name is Robert Fenton, and he was a youth pastor. And at 26, he told one of the couples that attended the church that he was attracted by their daughter, who was 14.
14, right.
Yeah. And he told them that he was meant to be with her. And coming from a youth pastor, and being, attendees of the church, they took that to have great significance. So at the time, the church didn't allow them to get married because he was 12 years older than her. But the girl's family did approve a courtship. And the church leaders supported that. But then he started to sexually assault her.
And I suppose she's too young to actually give consent.
Indeed. So
well, certainly in English law, she would be anyway. I think.
It was illegal, although I think technically at that time New York did allow marriage between 14-year-olds, not necessarily between 26-year-olds and 14-year-olds, but between mutually 14-year-olds under certain circumstances. But that didn't happen. And of course, it violated their religious beliefs regarding abstinence before marriage as well. And it was a very puritanical, very misogynistic sect. And they believed if a man lusted for a woman, it was the woman's fault. So, yeah, ridiculous, isn't it? So even if the girl knew that something was wrong, she believed that she couldn't tell church leaders because they would have blamed her. It's such a backwards mentality, isn't it? Anyway, going on with the story, they were scheduled to get married some years later, but a couple of weeks before the wedding, this Robert Fenton got sick with pancreatitis and went to hospital. Unusually for a serious condition like pancreatitis, he survived, but he called off the wedding, told the girl that marrying her would ruin his ministry as a youth pastor, and then he moved to Australia. So that all happened back in 1998. 20 years later, the girl came out and she informed law enforcement what had happened to her when she was a child. And she gave investigators the names of other church members and leaders who could corroborate her testimony, which they did. Now, coming up to date more, in April of 2022, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania announced that Fenton had been charged with sexual assault. Nothing could be done because he was in Australia. However, last month, he got on a plane from Brisbane to the Philippines. And when he landed, the Philippine Bureau of Immigration stopped him from leaving the airport. So he couldn't leave the airport. And according to the news agency there, his name prompted a positive hit on the Interpol system because of his crimes. And now he's been shipped back on a flight to Los Angeles. And by now he's 54. But he's being held in California until eventually he's expected to be transferred to Pennsylvania, where he will be arraigned.
I thought it was New York.
Well, it was. I think he's actually from Pennsylvania, which of course abuts the New York state. And I think he was just working in New York across the border. And that's why the two locations are mentioned in this story. But arraignment, do we have that in the UK?
We used to, yes. Arraignment no longer really exists. I mean, technically, when a person who's charged with an offence that's only triable in the Crown Court is transferred, that the word transfer is now the word used, from the Magistrates' Court, where you always appear first. When you're transferred to the Crown Court, that is the arraignment. And when you arrive in the Crown Court, you are arraigned. That is, the charges put to you. But
right.
I mean, they used to be a much more.
So in America, do they miss out the magistrates' court stage and go straight to the?
Well, I don't know the answer to that. Because I mean, they have the grand jury system, and that's what the grand jury does. I think is arraign somebody. But I'm not sure exactly how they do it there. I know they have some features that feel very archaic to us. But on the other hand, you know, you could argue that our system has been so streamlined that actually some safeguards are absent that maybe should be there.
Anyway, this is
interesting.
This is a story that will run. we will revisit this as his case proceeds. Meanwhile, staying with America, a senior pupil at Fort Defiance High School, Verona, Virginia, name of Abby Driscoll, she created an artwork as part of her assessment. And it features pages from the Bible, but in the foreground, praying hands clasp a rosary, and there are blood stains, but the blood stains are in rainbow colors. And the text reads, "God loves you, but not enough to save you." And the girl explained that this piece is representative of the idea that growing up queer meant you couldn't be saved by God. I grew up in a religious background that influenced this project. The idea of the glowing red cross is to represent evil in the eyes of God, and the bleeding rainbow represents devotion versus identity. She's obviously a very thoughtful student. But of course, a school board member was deeply offended by it, and he announced that several people had contacted him and they were also deeply offended. However, there's a sort of good news in the tail of this, because last Saturday the board announced that the painting could stay in the art show. But they would consider revising the rules in future to prevent something like this from ever happening again.
Well, I mean, it's a matter of freedom of belief and of speech, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Sacrosanct in the States. But I mean, a child, I don't know how old she is, who's done that, high school.
16, I guess.
It looks as if she might have an interesting career as an artist ahead of her. And you know, let's watch that space, because, wow.
She's already making waves. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could imagine that in this country, you know, she might be hounded out, and you know, I don't know. She might have it might be a different outcome here, but especially if it was pages of the Quran rather than. I saw today another Quran desecration video that has. I suspect it won't be around long, but I did see it. Yeah.
Brave people who do.
I think one can oppose Islam and religion and generally without doing that. But it may be that an artwork like that is particularly poignant and might make some people sort of question their views. I don't know.
Absolutely. On the subject of brave people who make videos to express their passions and their mission in life, the Reverend Dr. Sue Parfitt, 82, and her friend Judy Bryce, 85, broke the glass of the case containing the Magna Carta at the British Library and got video doing it. And after breaking the glass and claiming that they did it to just stop oil, they glued their hands together.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty good, isn't it?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's the interesting thing there is Magna Carta has this symbolic value, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah, yeah,
We think of it as the source of our freedoms,
yes, yes,
and so I mean, I like the idea of using symbolism in your protests rather than just going out and waving banners. If you can think of some symbolic action to do which highlights it and gets attention, that's
yeah,
good. So, and of course, we do need to stop using oil, and we need to do it
yes,
urgently. I mean, we can see today, this week, we've had record temperatures
yes,
time
yes,
of the year, and we know what's going on. We can see it every day, and
absolutely.
and there are parts of the world within the last week or so that have had quite extraordinary flooding.
Yeah,
So, we've got to do something more than we are doing. It's not working. We've got to take urgent action.
yeah.
It's difficult to know how urgent things can be done, but
Mm.
yeah.
And they were causing damage to attract attention. So
Yes, yeah.
can you condone that? I don't know, but how else
Well,
are you going to attract
yeah,
attention?
exactly.
That's the problem.
Incidentally, Magna Carta is not really much of it's
No,
not what it's cracked up to be.
no, no,
It was really a charter whereby the barons tried to restrain excesses of the king.
yes,
So
yes.
it's not about the common man at all,
No,
really.
no, no, no. It's all about their power,
Yeah,
nobility. Yeah, not us. Yeah, that's right.
yeah.
Huh. Anyway, I haven't got a video to show you here, but if you look at the Global Atheist News I uploaded yesterday, there's a very funny video in which there's an actor portraying Jesus, and he is using biblical quotes, which are outrageous in themselves when you interpret them in modern cultural terms. So I urge you to watch. I only included about a minute or two of it in the news yesterday, but I could put the link to the
Yeah,
whole thing,
yeah,
which is
please do. Yeah.
very funny. It's well worth watching, and it's very well. The production qualities are very high. I recommend.
You've got here, woke Jesus want proof? Is that, or is
Yeah,
that supposed to be poof?
yeah. The huh,
I don't understand it.
proof. Yeah. Do you want proof of the woke Jesus? Because what Jesus is doing in the videos is taking things literally
Ah,
and
right.
pointing out. I mean, you have to deduce it for yourself
Yeah,
that it's ridiculous to do this.
yeah.
Mm. And finally, another video that's in the news that I recommend you to watch is a very short video, but it shows mysteriously two women. No, it might be four women. They're dressed in burqas, so you can't identify them. They're entirely black. But they're in the middle of the road on the central reservation. There's traffic going past in both directions. So it's a very dangerous location. They're beating hell out of each other. And the thing that attracted my attention was there's a baby. And at first I thought it was a dolly because it was just dropped onto the ground and then picked up by an arm and then redropped. And it was only after watching it a couple of times I realized this is a live child. It's moving for itself, but it doesn't concern them in the slightest. They're more involved with beating the hell out of each other.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, people have bust ups all the time, but it's usually men who are drunk outside pubs or clubs or something.
Yeah,
So it's unusual. But
it is.
We do know that people fall out in every community.
Yeah.
And so it's not surprising that burqa-clad women will fall out as well.
No.
Yeah. So were they stopped by the police? Did someone intervene at any time? No?
Not on the video. No, we know no more than that.
I mean, the CCTV is not going to be able to identify them very easily, is it?
No, indeed. Yeah. It was just so incongruous that I included it in the news.
I mean, I actually think that allowing people to wear face coverings for any reason at all is a security issue and shouldn't be allowed in a secular society. But I think we've lost that one now in this country. France hasn't, but not here.
So you remember what the IRA used to wear? It was a knitted hood that just let their eyes through.
Show through. A balaclava sort of thing.
Yeah. So what's the difference between that?
Yeah, and a bank robber doing it. Yeah, there isn't any difference really.
No.
And you see women in the supermarket, covered with just maybe they're just their eyes or something. And you think,
why do you need to do it?
If they're up to shoplifting, they cannot be traced so easily. Although actually there is smart technology that can identify eyes. I remember when I was a solicitor many years ago, a burglar was caught, and his eyelashes were actually somewhat unique. Everybody's eyelashes are different, and this guy's eyelashes were sort of unique, and he was identified that way. Really
amazing,
which is interesting.
Yeah, you need a really good shot, though, don't you, to capture that sort of detail? Not usually available from CCTV.
Well, they can usually enhance them to a certain extent, but quality CCTV makes a difference.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's the end of the show for me.
All right.
We've discussed all the items. Thank you very much for coming.
Right. Cheers, John.
Take the rest of the day off.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carrying bread.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that?